Brian Garner, our township attorney is here. He is going to get up to speak.
Under the present circumstances, we have to look at the facts that we have here. We have a zoning ordinance that is in effect that does provide for wind energy. Okay, that zoning ordinance was put into effect when they knew that wind energy was coming into the township. So it wasn't a circumstance where we weren't predicting wind energy. We didn't think about it. We didn't know it was going to come. We knew it was going to come. We had our engineers, Spicer Group hired engineers, help us develop an ordinance. So when you take these facts and you reconcile them with some of the case law that's out there, the Van Buren case that people were referencing, the attorneys were referencing last time, under the Van Buren case, it seemed to indicate that you could do a moratorium. That you could do it for 180 days, you could do it for 60 days, some said they could do it for a year or whatever, but the circumstances in that case were different. Yes, they had a zoning ordinance, but they didn't have a zoning ordinance with provisions specifically drafted for that activity that they sought to get a moratorium on, okay? So given that, I think that it's probably best, and it would be my recommendation, that a moratorium isn't appropriate at this time.
Before we go any farther, I'm going to say this. I've heard there's concerns about me being a leaseholder and issues dealing with wind energy. So I don't think it's an issue myself, but given the concerns, I will recuse myself from dealing with wind energy issues in front of the board tonight. So at this time, is there, I'll entertain a motion for the moratorium.
Dwayne, are we allowed to ask questions at this time?
Public comment is
At the end.
At
At the end.
Okay.
Honestly, I think at this time, Brian has pretty much explained to us as the board what our options are, and he's pretty much said that the planning commission is the one that has to bring it to us. So I feel that no motion at this time. I think they need to go to the planning commission meeting, and then it's up to the planning board to bring it to the township at that time, and if they come up with a decision or what they want to do and present it to the board, then we go with that. But other than that, our hands are tied at this time, I think. No.
Okay, the moratorium dies without any support with a motion.
But it's a resolution regarding the rules for public time. I know that was a concern that came up because of the last meeting. We didn't want to limit anybody because we didn't have any formally adopted rules to limit or to structure the public time. And so the board had asked me to come up with some simple rules that you get the opportunity, they're directed to the township supervisor, they may include their name, address, preferred but not required, township residency, comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person, township has the discretion to respond or not respond to public comments, and persons failing to abide by these provisions will be ruled out of order and may be requested, I put an extra word, may be asked to stop commenting, cross off the one line, but other than that, I'll leave that for you guys to discuss. There isn't much more that we can do.
And if we adopt it and make the motion, then it goes into effect as of today's
It goes
date?
in effect, yeah.
Well, I think we need to adopt it.
Make a motion.
I'll make the motion. Okay, Mike?
Yay.
Diane? Jody?
Okay, the resolution passed by a full vote.
And I think just note that the other board member was absent. Is there, you give them a few minutes to get on the agenda? I mean, if you want to amend the agenda to allow them to speak.
The only question I've got is if we put them on the agenda, is it gonna be the same presentation that we heard last month? Because I don't really wanna hear it again. We've heard it twice, and then I'm gonna hear it at the planning commission again.
No, it's not. But I guess if that's the criteria, then I'll just go next week.
Well, it's just that, you've already done your presentation. I don't think everybody needs to hear it again, the whole presentation.
I'll just go next week.
So, on the
Or
public comment,
Can I
then
ask
he's
if we're
entitled.
gonna be able to yield time, or?
No, it's 3 minutes per person.
Okay. If you want to speak, then step up to the podium and state your name, so Jody can hear you.
Right.
We'll go from there.
Russell Spears. I guess we'll just start out and ask the board, why wasn't the meeting rescheduled? I mean, we have these issues with weather, we have board member not present. We just made a resolution to our bylaws. We had a big, or not a big thing regarding a moratorium. It seems like a pretty important meeting on a pretty bad day. And now when we get a chance to talk, it's against the law to limit public comment. I understand we can do the 3-minute deal, but to only put a half-hour time frame on that is against the law, Open Meetings Act.
I don't understand.
Anyways, why didn't we reschedule the meeting?
Don't need to.
You're here.
Okay, yeah.
My name's Gary Curtis, live on Dutcher Road. I guess my question really might not be so much for the board as it is to the gentleman that just gave us the presentation. He talked about not hurting the land value. Have you ever done any study, has this board done any study, to find out what has to happen to the value of the homes that end up being infringed by these turbines? Have you gone back to find out if the people can still get the money out of their homes that they have invested in the homes? Has there been any study done on that? Because you talked about it's not gonna hurt our land value.
According to the new rule, address the comments of the board.
Okay.
I mean, you can ask them afterwards or at the fact, or at the planning commission meeting would be a great place.
Has this board done any study on it? Do you know it's not gonna hurt our land value? Thank you.
George Patullo. There's already been a lot of damage done in this township, and there's gonna be a lot more apparently, for the simple reason that we're gonna railroad these things in regardless of the health and safety concerns of everybody in this township. The zoning ordinance was put into effect with information from NextEra and Spicer. If you go to look at the townships in Huron County and over the west side of this county, guess what? They all look alike because NextEra and Spicer, and what do they have? A conflict of interest. You think they're not slanted toward them putting in more turbines? They really don't care as much as they tell you how much they really are concerned about your welfare. They've already been to the state tax tribunal to get the taxes lowered on what they're gonna have to pay. There's some court cases coming here right shortly, and I know Dwayne and the rest of them that are here that have the leases, you could care less. I'm just another thorn in the side. Well, I'm going to continue to be a thorn in the side. The more I look at this thing, the more I see a bunch of greedy people not interested in looking at what the health and safety issues are. Huron County has already changed their zoning laws because of health and safety issues. I'd like to have our wind turbine sound machine here tonight so we could have played it. And I can guarantee you would be begging us to shut it off. That's just the sound issues for the health. I'm not sleeping as good as I should, because this frustrates me that we're being railroaded by attorney, by NextEra, by their attorneys. This thing is far from over. I don't really see where it's necessary to railroad it in. Let's look at it, and I know that the planning commission, that's what it's for. But it would have been nice to have a moratorium so we could at least make sure that you're not gonna, you aren't, and NextEra and some of the rest of you are not gonna pull some more shenanigans, so we can't even speak. And I expect I'm gonna get shut off here shortly. But I have something to say before that happens. I know that NextEra, would you have the bottom line and would your credit rating be so great if you didn't have the big subsidies from the federal government? And each of you people out here is paying $4,000 to NextEra so they can put this wind farm in Tuscola County. We as citizens are having to pay through tax dollars that are being funneled to NextEra. There's a whole lot of things here, and I get it. I really get frustrated with some of our board members who aren't even interested in looking at this. There was meetings in Argyle 10 days ago, roughly. There was a meeting in Sandusky about 2 weeks ago. And these were townships in Santa County that are having one at a time with the wind farms. This is not stuff I'm making up or Mike's making up. Why wasn't our planning commission, why weren't our board members at these meetings to see what's going on out there? Sit in your own little shell, and we're gonna have dollars coming, lots of it, lots of it. Well, guess what? When these things are not paying off like they started out to do, you know how much money the townships and the counties are gonna get? Not very much. This whole zoning ordinance is way out of whack, and that's all Mike is trying to present. They've done a ton of research. I wish some of you guys on the board would put as much effort toward educating yourself to what's going on. And I've got one thing to say. You can shut me up now because I've talked more than my 3 minutes. But guess what? When all these turbines are sitting out here close to your house, you can't shut them up for the next 20 years. Does that make sense to you guys on board? I hope so. Look at this thing. It's not just what you can get in your hands, in your pocket. We've already seen conflict of interest. I'm going to shut up. I had enough. I've said enough.
Bobby Monston. This last couple weeks has been pretty difficult. We didn't know anything about this until it was brought to my attention in the grocery store of all places. And I'll tell you what I told my mother-in-law. This group of concerned citizens, we're all Christian. We're all educated. We all hold at least a bachelor's degree. Okay, we're not dumb. We're not making things up. Our concerns are legitimate, and it doesn't seem to me that you're taking it seriously. I see a checkbook out, she was writing checks and going through her ledger, and kind of a laissez-faire attitude about it. 90% of this community doesn't want it. 90% of us are concerned about the health, welfare, and well-being of our families. I myself have a chronic condition, and if I don't get a good night's sleep, it worsens. I have a child on the autism spectrum. He's very sensitive to hearing. If he doesn't sleep well, we don't function well in the Mosden household. I'm sorry. And there's 5 of us. This is very important, and I also see relationships going down the tubes. Mike, your wife is one of my closest friends, and I'll never do anything to hurt her. But this is important to us. This is where we live. We put our heart, soul, blood, sweat, and tears into our home. And I might only own 2 acres, but it's mine. And the trespassing zone, that sound is gonna hit my house. I drive around the neighborhood, I can see where they're gonna be put. I'm not dumb. You can see the higher elevation, that's where they're gonna go. And it faces my house. And I've done the research. Mike and Carmel have educated me. Do the research, listen to what we're saying. We're not saying this because we wanna hurt you. We're not saying this because we don't want people to prosper. We all wanna prosper. We all want to prosper, and I come from a farming family. I'm married into a farming family. I want nothing more than to see you hardworking farmers bring in some extra income, because I think you deserve it. I know how hard you work. I know how hard it is to farm. I've seen my father-in-law, mother-in-law for 20 years. I've been married for 20 years, half my life. I've been in a farming family. I understand it, but not to have it affect the health and the well-being and potentially the safety of my family. There are people I know who live in, over by Alma, in the middle of the state, St. Louis area, where they have problems because of the windmills. There's people with migraine issues, people with, when you don't sleep well, that's when your body starts to break down, and that's when different kinds of things can happen. You can end up having heart palpitations. You can end up having, you just get sick easier because you're not sleeping well at night. Those are the things that you really need to consider. It's not as easy as what they're saying. In a company, they should, by all means, they need to sell themselves on their good points. That's good business, and I agree. And if it were me, I would do the same thing. But for my family, I'm looking at the pros and the cons. I want to weigh it out. And what I'm seeing in the con section, it isn't worth the extra money. It isn't worth me saying to my husband, I can't live here anymore with my children. I have to take Jonathan and we have to go to a hotel because we can't sleep here. It's not worth that to me. Is it worth it? Is it worth it to see the division that's going on in our neighborhood, where we have all lived and raised our kids, and some people have grandchildren, second, third generation. We're second and third generation. Odell, Maxine Odell, that's, my husband's grandmother, that's, our land is Odell land. We've been there forever, and we want to stay. But if this continues, I don't see how we can stay. I don't see how it's going to be possible to say to my son in 20 years, son, you want this house? Good, mom and dad, we want to travel. Here, you take the house so we can go travel.
Mike Patullo, as the supervisor with a perceived conflict of interest, I'm asking if he's going to plan on
If he
attending that
chooses
meeting.
to come to that meeting, it's a public meeting. He is not part of the board. So he's a resident, he can attend that meeting if he so chooses.
We are concerned that we're not going to get our due process if Mr. Lockwood is there, using his influence over the planning commission. Well, I'm going to try to read it real fast. We, the undersigned citizens of the Ellington Township, are concerned by the revelation that Supervisor Lockwood participated in development of regulations for industrial wind turbines, having a clear conflict of interest due to the fact that he signed wind lease agreement with NextEra. And that's about all I'm going to read of it. At the end of that letter, it says, we ask that Mr. Lockwood recuse himself from any further participation in matter related to regulation of wind energy, including removing himself from the room when such things or such issues are being addressed. It also says we would like the Ellington Township to pass a moratorium, and that we would like our wind ordinance revised. We took that wording around to our residents in the last 3 or 4 days. We have about 85 signatures here already. It's not a petition. We told everyone it's not a petition. What we're trying to decide or establish it is not just a couple of us, a few citizens that are very concerned about whether we're going to get our due process with this conflict of interest in place. I think we're probably going to have to get more signatures. By the way, these 85 signatures represent about 45 homes, and that's about double what the wind lease homes are in our township. It's about 25. There's another 15 that are non-residents, so it's in the 40 neighborhood. There's 480 homes in our township, so 90% or better are not going to have wind leases. I would also like to ask NextEra because they made the statement that they have high ethics and they won some award. I want to know how you can do that and negotiate with our supervisor at the same time before the wind ordinance is enacted. I don't understand how you can do both of those at the same time. Did you not know he was our supervisor? I think you lured him into some stuff that was really bad, okay? I don't know if he has a way out of it now. We are all a family in this township, at least we used to be.